What is up, everyone? I am so happy to be joining you this evening because I thought about 2 seconds ago I was going to go live with my phone and tell you guys it was postponed because I couldn't get anything to work properly. But at the very last minute, I got it to work. Yay! Hold on. I got a sound effect for that, maybe. I don't know which one it is. All right, anyway. How's everybody doing this evening? Thank you for joining me tonight. Pretty much, we're going to do lots of questions, like always, but I got something to say about buying parts and how people approach it. And some of it may sound like a little bit like a sales pitch, so I'll just come out and say it. But I'm not trying to motivate people to buy parts from us, but I'm trying to educate you on how to decide where to buy your parts, how to buy your parts, right? One of the problems is people buy, parts from 5 different people for one project. So, we can start there, I guess. But let's see who all's in here tonight. All right. Sublime GT, what's up? We've got Brandy in the house. Sasha from the Philippines, what's up? All right, guys. So anyway, how's everybody doing tonight? Got many projects going on out there. Things have been kind of quiet on Facebook. Talking to a lot of people doing long-term projects, but I guess it's probably so hot today. It was 90. I don't know what it actually wound up being. The forecast was going to be 96 and 110. Feels like temperature. Scala, what's up? How you doing this evening? So anyway, let's go ahead and just get started. Maybe we'll get more people in here in a few minutes. But anyway, so one of the biggest things is we're obviously a tuner, as most people know. So we see the car last. We're usually one of the last people to touch the car. So at that point, most of the parts have been, and I'm talking about cars that we don't build here. Obviously, cars we build here, we spec out the entire car, and there's none of this really comes into play if it's built here. It's really when, you're buying parts, and there's nothing wrong with buying your own parts, just yourself, and not going through a shop exactly and buying from a few different places and installing them yourself. Or if you have a shop you like to deal with and they don't really do parts, obviously you have to buy parts somewhere. So buy those parts. But the problem really comes down to, I'm guilty of this myself, which is doing all my shopping online, not talking to anybody, not like getting a relationship with somebody, trying to get somebody to understand your needs and then really help you make buying decisions. Because, and I think maybe some people, including myself at times, avoid salesmen because they think, they're going to sell me a bunch of stuff I don't need to know. I can research all this stuff online myself. And, to a certain extent, that part of that's true. I mean, for certain things, very, very simple setups. But when it comes down to like the second and third tier of products out there that you need for your setup, that's, obviously, you know what supercharger you may want, or what turbo kit you may want, but what turbos, what options, what injectors do I need? What injectors should I get? All those sorts of things that once the car gets to us, oftentimes we have to coach the person and really talk them down from a ledge. Like, man, I wasted all this money and I need these injectors aren't going to work. And it's not just injectors, it's all sorts of things. Fuel pumps, just the whole, and there's not anything that makes one part bad in this situation. It's just maybe not right for the setup. So that's a situation we run into a lot of the time. Sublime GT says a customer backed into your F-150. Ouch. That sucks. We've had some accidents in our parking lot, probably none bigger than a Ford GT getting, T-boned. by a huge truck. Luckily, it was only going a couple miles an hour, but it did some damage. So that definitely sucks. But anyway, so, when talking about the parts deal, what happens is, even though when you start comparing stuff like these guys have this for $100 cheaper, so I'm going to buy this from them, and this over here is $50 cheaper, and this over here is $100 cheaper. And, okay, right there, you save $250. That's great. First off, maybe if you buy all those parts from one person, they'll give you a deal and match those prices. So you can do your research and get those prices, but maybe somebody will just match those prices that you like to deal with. But secondly, it's really nice to run all that by somebody. And, just using ourselves as an example, we install all these parts. We have a full service shop, Dyno. Remote tuning is huge. There's a lot of remote tuners out there, but I don't think a lot of them operate a day-to-day shop like we do, both on the Dyno and full service shop. Send us a bone stock car, and we'll send you whatever you decide you want to dream up. And we do this, in a pretty large volume. On all sorts of setups. Obviously, a lot of F-150s, a lot of GT500s, GT350s, Mustang GT, of course, Mach 1s, all sorts of things. So, when they say ask your tuner, in most cases, it's because, well, that person's going to be tuning it. So, obviously, ultimately, they should know what's going on. But in our case, not only are we tuning it, but we build the same thing that you're trying to build all the time. So we can tell you what you need and what you don't need. And oftentimes, a lot of people both complain about going over budget to me, and then we find they were sold a lot of options and things on any particular setup that they didn't even really need. And they could have saved, even though, when they're trying to compare different part numbers and supercharger kits, they thought they saved $250. It's like, well, actually, you didn't need all this other stuff that you got here. So you got a good deal on things you didn't need. So, that's really what it comes down to. And oftentimes it comes down to not just the parts, because, and this happens a lot, we have people that, get everything ready and the car's at a shop. And by the time we catch wind of it, the car's almost all the way together. And it's like, wait a second, guys, that's not going to work. You need to change this. You need to change that. So this guy is, in this case, probably brought his parts to that shop. So the shop's not at fault here. The guy thought he did a good job of researching things, but didn't. So now his car's stuck at that shop, maybe half a part. They got to overnight parts, try and get parts. They start leaning on us to, like, the minute they get it done, now they're a day or so behind to get it done, when, we do our best to help people out in that situation. But you are asking us to do something that's not our fault, or make up for something that's not even our fault. In fact, if you would have called us, or we could be your tuner, and, somebody else could be your parts person, but just make sure they're coming from an educated standpoint, right? So that's what we can offer, since we do so much tuning and all the work on the vehicles. Pierre and Mike that work up front, they're dealing with this stuff every day. They're kind of speccing out these builds for things that are getting done in-house, that obviously we're super proud of everything that comes out of here. So these are well thought out kits that we do, so the people that are doing those can give you that same sort of advice. And even if you wind up ultimately not buying from us, we still would appreciate you calling us, and we can give you the advice part. And that way, when we tune it, we can still make sure we have a nice smooth experience. Because at the end of the day, although I never turn anybody away for helping them, we spend a huge amount of time helping people troubleshoot issues that are absolutely nothing to do with tuning. And it probably was avoidable by a different parts choice, or maybe, this bleeds over into, which I think I've talked about before, into picking who's working on your vehicle too, because that's another issue. And I can give you a good example there. recently. A friend, is a customer, but also a friend. Tommy has a GT 500, and it's been fast, stock blower, ported, all that kind of stuff. Decides to do a fuel system, so he gets it done. He's over on the other side of the state, and I'm trying to remote tune it, and it's not going well. So I was like, man, something's up with the fuel pressure. So I asked him where the the reference for the fuel pressure regulator is, and it's plumbed into the bypass valve on the Supercharger, which doesn't even see boost on a 2020 GT 500. So at that point, he fixes that, but we both decide like he's just going to bring the car over so we can tune it and look at it in person. And I'm glad he did, because and this is a parts choice, although it came through a shop. It was a friend of his. I'm not trying to bash, but this is a case of like, oh, well, that guy's a mechanic and he knows what he's doing. Put a fuel system in my car. Well, they put, he tells me, he's like, hey, I don't like where they put that fuel filter, and it was under the hood, which there's no problem with putting a fuel filter under the hood. We did that on Ronnie Jones' car with the ID filter. Closest to the rail is a good spot, but in this case, it just didn't look good. But then when he pointed that out, I was like, well, that's normal where we put the fuel pressure regulator. So where's fuel pressure regulator? And Tommy's like, well, it's in the back. And I was like, what? So I instantly knew when he said it was in the back that it was a radium hat, which we use radium hats, and they're set up to mimic a stock, like a mechanical returnless hat where it has a regulator on top. But when you're using it in this application, there's no way you should do that. No way. So many reasons, and we can have a whole video on fuel system stuff, but you never want your fuel regulated back there, because then you have to account for the pressure drop over all that fuel line after the regulator, and that goes up as fuel goes up. So it's not easy to account for. Anyway, so once I saw that, I'm like, let's stop right here. So on the radium hat, they have a block-off plate. You take that regulator out of the hat, put a block-off plate in it, then it just works like a normal fuel hat, and then you put a normal regulator up front. So, in this case, this is a situation where, and I'm not faulting Tommy, and he's got a GT 500 and a badass no prep car, so he's not poor, so he shouldn't take offense to this. But maybe he was trying to save a few bucks, and they're like, oh, well, that 4 system is this much money, but we could do it for this, without knowing any of the details of what this was. That's where everything went to shit. So it's like, okay, fine. If you think you could put together a hat with pumps and everything, but like, what are you giving me? And in this case, he knew what pumps were in there, 2 pumps, but that was it. He didn't know any of the other details. So, that's where we could have came in, and, Tommy's a customer, but I'm also friends with Tommy. So even more so, he has no excuse for not having gotten with me. So let's look at a couple questions real quick. I'll keep going. TT GT350 T56 Magnum. Should I go 410 or 456? Car is a highway car, 60 to 130. They don't make 430s for these cars, unfortunately. Yeah, I mean, depending on what kind of power range you're at, I think 456 would be way too much for a twin turbo GT 500. I mean, I assume, at a minimum, you're making 750 to 800 if you're on pump gas, or higher after that. So you definitely don't want to be overgeared for something like that, especially if it's a highway car, because you want to get, I mean, I guess if you're only going to 130, it doesn't matter. But if you're going for high speed stuff. Jamie says, hey, bud, I have a 2020 GT500 track pack. I do not drive it. It has 10.5 miles on it. Would you do a turbo kit or just do a bolt on? What do you think? Well, it just depends on what you want out of it. Twin turbo setups are awesome. We're doing one in-house right now with a TTR intake. So my opinion would be, if you're going to do twin turbo, you have to do a good intake on a GT500. Not because you need a good intake, but, I can't get, sorry, if you guys got this on one of your current vehicles, but you're talking about a car that's $80,000. So like, I just can't put like a Mustang GT intake on it. It has to be a billet intake. Obviously we do the TTR here. or Plasma Man, but TTR obviously mostly now. I don't care what you do, but if you're going to do twin turbo, then you really should do a good intake just because the car deserves it. It's a high level car and it needs a nice, really nice looking intake manifold on it. So it can get expensive really quick. So it really comes down to budget on that question. But if you want a unique setup, I think the twin turbo setup is the most unique setup for 2020 GT500 because there's going to be way less people doing that. Obviously, the easy route is a ported blower, which I love. We do a ton of those. And if you just want to have fun with the car and you don't really care about anything else, then that's your way to go. Ported blower, bolt-ons, best possible way to go. Never buy cheap parts. Cheap parts equals cheap build. Yep. And even in the case that I'm talking about, we're talking about the same part maybe, but buying it from somebody who may be just slightly cheaper, but you're not necessarily getting the good advice and guidance that you might get from somebody that's more of an expert, right? And obviously, I think we're experts and we can do well, but there's other people out there that have been selling these parts for a really long time, and there's other good resources besides Palm Beach Dyno for this topic. So if you're not buying from us, the point is to buy from somebody you trust, right? Like the person that you're buying parts for your car from, you should feel like they're your advisor, right? Like they're going to help you along this journey. Now, if you think you know enough to do it yourself, that's fine. Then you don't need that. But most people do. Most people aren't doing this full time every day, keeping track of every little detail, every new product, every best new way to do things. So that's what we do, right? And that's where we come in. Tommy says, I should have just brought it to you to begin with. I won't do it again, sir. My apologies. No problem, brother. It was an eye opener because, Tommy's story that I just told, that's another good example as it relates to the struggles of remote tuning from our end, right? I know you guys struggle on your end, emails that you're not sure we're getting, things like that. But on our end, it's very, very difficult. And why you get the reaction from a lot of tuners that you do when there's a problem, which is like, no, that file's good, something's wrong with your car. And a lot of the times that is the problem, but sometimes it's not. So that's the trap that you gotta be sure you don't fall into, which is like instantly dismiss it as a car issue when you don't take enough time to look a little deeper, to make sure it's not the tune. I do that all the time. And sometimes it is the tune, like, oops, but most of the time, if I would have said known good file, that would have been accurate a lot of the time. But I want to make sure because I make mistakes. Every car is a little different. Maybe like just something was a little bit off and it's like, oh, I see what's going on here. And, no big deal. So that's the real struggle with remote tuning. We don't know what's going on with the car on the other side there. We assume everybody has done things properly, but we can't quiz you or give you a 20-page thing to read to make sure you did all this because nobody's going to read it anyway. So that's the challenge on our end. John Miles says he's got a 23 Whipple F-150 and needing some street tires. What size tires and rims would you recommend? I really like the what I have on my truck, which is super popular. That's the only downside, I guess, is Forge Star 22-inch. With the Whipple, not everybody wants to run a drag radial all the time, but if you want to enjoy your vehicle, you have to. So I run Nittos on mine. I don't know the size off the top of my head, but there's probably not that many options on the 22s. You can give us a call and we can help you out with that. We can sell everything you need for that. Roger, don't shops charge more labor for customer provided parts? Some do. We don't, as a general rule, we don't install customer supplied parts. Now, if you want to build your car with us and you're buying everything, but you had already bought injectors, of course, we're going to still work on your vehicle and put the injectors in. But as a general rule, we only work on vehicles where you buy the parts from us because, um, well, we won't get into that. That's shop economics, but it's just it doesn't make sense for us to take up a lift on a labor only job when there's endless jobs behind that are labor and parts and people that want to support us, right? It really does come down to that. Like if you know, we're very busy in the shop, thankfully, but um, you know, we want to work with people that want to work with us on a long term relationship and buy parts from us and not worry about this, oh, well, I can save $5 extra buying it online. Well, talk to us. Maybe we can work some out. If we can't, maybe pay $5 extra and just help support, a business like us. Have you ever used Aeromotive in tank? No, I don't use much Aeromotive stuff ever on street cars. In fact, never almost. When they're in tank pumps, the normal style pumps came out. I tried them and I didn't like them. They didn't work very well. So we don't use much of their stuff. I have used their brushless deal in a fuel cell situation on race car-ish kind of car. But it's super loud, which I knew about, but it was just that kind of deal. Hey, Craig Bilt, what's up? Thanks for joining us. Tom, any news on tuning capabilities for 2024 F-150 besides the Whipple? Nope. There's not going to be any news. Sorry to tell you. If it's just a prediction, obviously it's based on no specific inside information, but understanding how all these pieces go together and how things move in this industry and what they're up against. Here's my prediction. My prediction is there won't be any straight up custom tuning like we currently do, which like on 21 to 23 F-150, yeah, you have to send the PCM in. It's $99 to unlock, but not even on my radar, right? That doesn't count. That's just normal tuning still. Sucks to have to send the PCM in, but $99, no big deal. But I don't think that's going to happen on 24 F-150. I think the only way that we're ever going to see tuning is maybe some sort of PCM replacement. I think it's going to be expensive. I don't know. I hate to be so negative because obviously it's my business. I can't tune 24 Mustang. I can't tune 24 F-150. I can't even tune 23 Godzilla trucks. I think we could do a PCM swap on those, but that becomes a little bit of a pain. So, for in-house builds, we'll do it, but not necessarily remotely. So, it's a big deal for Palm Beach Dyno, and that's why you need to buy your parts from us too. So, anybody that's looking to do real high performance builds at this point are just buying older trucks, which are very difficult to come by. Can't really get a single cab F-150 right now, unless you pay out the wazoo for it, which, those people know what they got. So that's the problem there. Sasha says, plus turbos like load. Yeah, talking about the gearing. Yeah, that's another good point. You're going to want to stretch that baby out. Mark says, saw your post on TT Carbon lid. What are the pros and cons to go with that route over a ported lid? I don't think anybody sells a ported lid. Your choices are billet lid, which has been out for a very long time, and we've sold a tremendous amount of those, and it's very well engineered. And that's what I had on my vehicle and all that. The carbon lid will be similar to that, except it's going to be made out of carbon fiber. The main reason to do the carbon lid over the billet lid is purely taste, right? The last thing I want to see anybody do is buy our billet lid and hydrocarbon it or do that to a stock lid or any of that. If you're into that stuff, that's fine. Definitely not anything I would endorse. So, so the carbon lid, it'll be a little bit lighter, of course, but not a huge amount. So it's more about the looks and, the fact that it's carbon fiber. And then, of course, you also have the VMP lid, which, for a cast lid, it's a pretty good lid. But in my particular case, we're talking about, the GT500 holds a very special place in my heart. So maybe I care more about it than a lot of the guys that are currently buying those vehicles, maybe. But To me, um, it comes down to just putting like super high quality stuff. So like maybe on a Mustang GT, it's not as big of a deal, but you're talking about Ford's top of the food chain, not counting things like the GTD and stuff like that. Vehicle that is going to be iconic forever. And like, there's no way I would personally put a cast lid in place of a cast lid. That's just a slight improvement when I could put a billet lid on there that looks phenomenal, or a carbon lid on there, which is even going to be the next level. So that's kind of how the lid thing shakes out. Jamie asks, what's the power limits on the 2020 GT500 trans? How should we build the trans if I went with a twin turbo kit? Thank you for your time, brother. So basically, there's not a lot of options. SSP has clutches for them. There's some people running them with success. I don't know anybody who's really done much with them at the drag strip. So it depends if the drag strip is, something you're interested in. Drag racing a twin turbo GT500 is a bit of a big deal. A blower is going to be way faster. So if drag racing is important, twin turbo is not necessarily the best choice right now. But as far as power wise, you're looking at keeping the stock trans with stock clutches somewhere at the 900 torque range, which at 900 torque, depending on the RPM you spin, you can really get up there. But you're talking somewhere in the 12 to 1300 horsepower range, and 900 torque is where most of them seem to be okay-ish, somewhere on that scale. They're all a little different. And then if the SSP clutches can help there. There's not really any other parts that I know of for the transmission, no hard parts, gears, nothing like that. So that's there's not much you can do except maybe SSP clutches, and we haven't done any SSP clutches. I put Datsun clutches in my vehicle, and it made 1600 horsepower and 1200 foot-pounds of torque, and the clutch held mint, but we couldn't get it to shift right. So kind of gave up on that because it's such an expensive endeavor. And since I wrecked my car, I didn't have an easy way to test it. And there just doesn't seem to be a huge amount of demand for that. So SSP might be the best option currently. Rick SVT, what's up? No problem, brother. You can always go back and look. You didn't miss too much. We're just kind of bullshitting mostly. Eric says, what's up? Glad to see you back. How you doing? But we're talking about parts and all the mistakes people make. And the main point that I've made so far was that you should find somebody that you really, really trust and try to buy everything from them. Maybe you'll get better deals if you buy from the same person. Maybe you'll get better advice. Maybe that person will be the answer your message Friday night when you're at the track and you need help with something. And I'm not asking people to spend a bunch of extra money. You still want to get competitive pricing on normal parts. When it comes to things like a tune or labor, that is what it is. That's more of like a quality thing, right? Like, some tunes are more expensive than other tunes. But, if you come to me and say, hey, this Whipple kit you quoted me is like, I could say like $300 buying it from this guy, we might be able to do something on things like that. But at least ask us. And a lot of people, we don't talk about it as much as we should, but we do a lot of parts business. We can get everything. I've been doing this for 20 years, so I could pretty much get any part on the planet here at Palm Beach Dyno, and or you can get them from our dealers. Like some of our dealers do a great job with that sort of stuff. I guess what I'm getting at is I'm somewhat attacking a lot of these basement sellers. I'm not really trying to say like somebody like don't buy from Lethal, buy from us. Lethal's great. They've been around a long, long time. Jared's been doing this pretty much about the same amount of time I have, I think. And they do a great job. These professional parts businesses, they still do a great job. Even though they're not full service shops, like I was saying, that gives us an advantage. They are pro parts people, so they deal in high volume in parts. So they do and should and do know, a good amount The bigger issue is when you're buying stuff off a guy that DMs you about injectors or this or that, or, and you're just piecing all this stuff together and you don't even have a game plan, like our GT 500 packages. I get people all the time that seemingly try to like duplicate some of the packages that we put out and do videos on, but they're missing a couple things, right? Is it the end of the world they're missing those things? No, but like that's a specific recipe for a reason. And if you miss out on a couple things, there might be some disadvantages. Is your car going to blow up? No. It might make a few less horsepower. It may run a little bit hotter, things like that. But when you buy a complete package instead of piecing it together yourself, you already know the results. Well, although, that's another rant I have to say about the parts business, okay? I've seen, and I'm not going to name any names, but, when the GT 500 stuff came out and we started coming out with our own packages and everything like that, I saw other people releasing packages that weren't even really doing GT 500s at the time. They were just kind of duplicating things in a rough estimated way and then just slapping, a price tag on it, which is great. I guess sometimes you have to do that. You can't, if you're a parts retailer, you can't really come up with those packages on everything, right? Like, some of the parts guys do have, vehicles, they do tests and package, specific things just on that deal. But like our GT 500 program, for instance, like our X900 deal is sick because like we spend so much time testing and revising, tuning, and the magic on that setup is just as much the tuning as it is the part selection and combination of things. I guess that's what it comes down to. Buy from somebody who's been in this business a long time, somebody who's a real business. Not everybody, some people last and suck, but most people that have been around a long time are around a long time for a reason. I see people run to the newest, hottest guy, and because he's probably hungry for business and selling you stuff barely over cost just to get his name out there. And that's great, and with the way the economy is nowadays, I don't really blame people for doing that, I guess. But I'd much rather see you give your business to somebody who's a real deal and been doing it a long time and can give you real advice. The biggest problem I see is overselling. People sell people too much shit and leave out the important stuff and just extra shit they don't need. Rick, figured some of this may be what I drummed up recently. Best advice is the deal may not be the best way to go, but the best customer services. You know what? That's a good example. If you're dealing with a parts company, in my opinion, that's email only, I think that instantly disqualifies them, right? If I can't call you, then why not? Why can't I call you, right? Do you not want to pay people to answer the phones? Do you not want to get questions you can't answer? I don't understand the no phone thing. Since Palm Beach Dyno has opened, we've always had a public phone number. Now we have, two very educated people on cars answering the phones there. We also have our tuning hotline that you can get access to. We love to talk on the phone to our customers. So that would be the very first thing that I would be suspect of. If you can't call somebody, then, you might want to reconsider doing business with them. Secondly, just because you can call, it depends, sometimes it's not always sunshine and rainbows on the other side of that phone call. So, deal with people who love doing it, right? You can tell if somebody wants to talk to you or if they're just answering your questions. We want to talk to you here. We love doing this stuff. And, again, I'm not just talking about us in this case. The people that are out there participating and running cars and doing this stuff. And I don't think it's like absolutely necessary to have the fastest car, right? If you're a shop, but have a car, race something once in a while. If you're not participating in the business that you're actually you're selling parts, but you don't actually participate in the high performance as a hobby, that's great. But then you're just dealing with some faceless business that's not really like you. So, but there's plenty of people out there that are shops or retailers or both that go out there and race and do this stuff. So, there's lots of options out there, but it seems like people still pick the wrong ones. Jeff, 21 GT 500, track pack car, JLT, lethal, fuel rails. Let's see what else. Guesstimate on 85 horsepower. I don't see a ported blower in there. So with the 2.7 pulley on E85, you should still be somewhere probably in the somewhere in the 800 range for sure. Mid 800s. Mid to high 800s maybe on our with this same setup on our like X900X package or our CX1100R package, which is normally a smaller pulley, but if we have a 2.7 pulley on it on E85 with the ported blower, that'll make right at 1,000 or a little under. These cars dyno differently based on the wheel. Carbon fiber track pack, the tire is almost more important than the wheel. So the Cup 2 tires, if you still have those or replace them with Cup 2 tires, you'll get the best possible dyno numbers. The engine's not making any different power, but just the tire and wheel setup definitely makes a difference. We make like 1,000 on a carbon fiber track pack, so the blower's worth about 100, so you should be, in the 900 or just under range, I would guess. Sublime, ain't gonna lie, I'm still skeptical about pushing 900 wheel on 93. Well, let me tell you this. Knock on wood, because as things get older, they're gonna break no matter what. But we've been doing the X900 package for a long time now. And I would have to go through and add them up. But we've built more X900s than we've built Whipple GT500s, CX1100 cars combined. And we've built a decent amount of those. So, plus there's plenty of people that are duplicate. That's in person. And then, lots of people buy the package and do it where they're at. And we really haven't had any issues. Everything's working great. So, 900 is the ceiling on that setup. But it's seems totally safe and fine. And it should be. We're 9.5 to 1 compression. It's the high compression that keeps us from doing that typically. And RPM. RPM is very, very key in this deal. You got to still keep the torque on the lower side, and then, the power climbs with RPM. We're spinning these things well over 8,000 RPM. Benny says, literally dealing with that shit show now. Sounds like you got a parts horror story. If you do, maybe feel like typing it out. I'd like to hear it. Rocco, do we do the transmission upgrades for customers? If so, how much is it to upgrade a 10R80? We do it in-house, but we don't build them ourselves. We are right next door to RSA, who they specialize in the... Looks like Simon's ready to come up on the chair. Sorry, guys. Hold on. So on the 10-speed setup, RSA does all our transmissions, but they're literally next door to us. So we pull the tranny, bring it over there. A day later, they get it back to us. So we have a really good relationship with them. We've sold a ton of their transmissions, and they're all running pretty good. Ed says, that's why I will do business in the future. I want to be able to phone, and please hit the like button. Yeah, definitely hit the like button, guys. I really want to get the YouTube channel going a little better. I need some help, honestly. Economy's a little tight to be having any media people, but we'll take volunteers if anybody's in the area. Anyway, Ant says, Simon is trying to knock me off the chair. Been with you guys for years, 19 GT, G3, 100 millimeter, need a revision right after Rob left, and he hooked me up. That's great. Everyone at PBD races or used to race. Yep, absolutely. Brandy says, "Hey, Meatball." That's Simon's nickname. Was speaking on Tuner Shop. You can't call, only emails suck. Oh, gotcha. Yeah, you know, I so here's my extended opinion on that. Now, you can't call here and talk to the tuner because that would be chaos, right? But because we have an awesome front of the house, customer service sales with Mike and Pierre, you can always call there to get an update for free. You know, hey, I sent a log, I haven't seen anything, and they'll look into it for you and get back to you. But we do also offer our premium service, which is phone support, where you call us directly, the tuners. And there's a reason we have to do that, right? Because it takes a lot of extra time to do that. So we can just have a much higher overall price, and the people that don't want to call will have to pay more, or we just have multiple tiers based on what you need. So that's why we do it that way. But there was a time where I probably subscribed to the idea of not doing phone support. Although, like I said, with Palm Beach Dyno, it's been phone support from the very beginning. There's some reasons to not do phone support, which is it's nice to have everything in writing for good and bad reasons. For good reasons, sometimes just for reference. And then for bad reasons, when things go south and somebody's blaming you for all kinds of shit that you didn't do and their car's just not put together correctly, it's nice to have everything in writing. So from a liability standpoint, that's one reason. Although, obviously there's phone recording systems and all that can take care of that. So, we try to be as high tech here as we can. And also the other reason is a lot of the times when you have to sit down and type out what's going on, you can explain it better than trying to explain it over the phone live, right? Sometimes. But the flip side is oftentimes people aren't very good at using the proper words, but when you're on the phone with them, a back and forth conversation can get out the right story. And that's really when the phone support on the tuning side comes in super big. And it took me a while to realize that. I was like, no, they can type it out and it would be easier to understand and kind of read through it a couple times and understand what they're talking about. And there's merit to that. But the advantage, especially on a problem vehicle, when you're talking to somebody and you could kind of talk through a problem where it would have been 10 emails back and forth over 2 weeks, you got it handled in like a 30-minute phone call. And, there's been a lot of aha moments where it's like, I know what you're talking about now. Okay, let me send you an update. Boom, it's fixed. And it's like, well, if that wasn't a phone call, that would have never gotten figured out, or it would have taken a ridiculous amount of time. So there's all kinds of things that happen here on a regular basis that make me realize how important that is. Mr. Joe, what's up? He's got an awesome S550. Joe has been a PBD customer since almost the very beginning. We did a Whipple on his car a long time ago, and he's doing twin turbos now and down the road Motec. So pretty cool stuff. Mark says, my Gen 3 with a 2650 Supercharger running VP MS109 tune is making 733 with 21 degrees of timing, but I get that much more with the return style system on E85. No, not a ton more. You'll get a little bit more. The advantage that most people would see in switching would be cost, because MS109 is obviously way more expensive than E85, especially if you can get pump E85. But even in a can, the MS109 is probably significantly more expensive. And since you have a supercharger, people may not want to be swapping pulleys going back and forth from MS109 to 93. If you do that, I don't know if you do that, it may be on MS109 all the time. And if that's the case, you're a baller or you just use it at the track. But, that's some of the things, the reasoning that goes into doing a fuel system with the 85 over MS109, other than just that it'll make a little bit more power. JMS Performance, question about the pump gas tuning y'all did on the Gen 3. Did cam timing have a big effect on peak torque changes or where it came in to make the combustion less chance of knock? Love the channel. Yes, definitely. All that factors in. And, you know, that's one of the many things that on the surface level, when people doubt it or, say they can't do it or they wouldn't do it, it's like, well, uh, how deep have they looked into it? How much do they care about doing it? Or are they just coming up with a recipe that works and sticking without that and not caring about everything else, and not realizing what else is possible? Because it's not groundbreaking shit. It seems like that way in the coyote world, and that's why I titled the video that way. Because the 93 seems to be a lost deal because everybody solution to the high compression was instantly E85. And of course, going low compression on a Gen 3, isn't the cheapest thing in the world. E85 is a little bit cheaper and easier route in the short term. But if you're building a longer term car that you just don't want to mess with E85, we wanted to show you guys that, what was possible. Roger says, shout out to all the part sellers that drop ship and take 6 months or a year to ship anything or just straight up rob you. Yeah, that's obviously a problem. Although, we do drop shipping too here. It's just a nature of the beast. A lot of the times, these parts are just so hard to get that you have to drop ship them. The other big advantage to drop shipping in the automotive world is it saves the customer money because of regular shipping, right? So, if I inventory stuff, depending on what kind of deals I get, I'd have to pay inbound shipping, put it on my shelf and inventory it, and then ship it out to you. Whereas if it's drop shipped, it could go directly out from the drop shipper. Now, the problem really comes with people that aren't upfront or honest about their inventory levels. Like on my site, anything that's drop shipped is actually linked with the inventory that I drop ship with. So if it says in stock, it truly is in stock. And I know a lot of companies don't put stock or just avoid that question because they want to get the sale and then tell you later that they don't have it. Yeah, I got that. So anyway, what time is it? Okay. So, that's pretty much, what do you guys think? I'd like to hear some feedback on the parts deal. How do you guys make your buying decisions? I guess some of it comes with age, because there was a time where I didn't want to talk to anybody. It's like, I don't want to talk to that guy. I just want to order parts and just get online, read everything I need to learn. And that's it. But as I get older, I realize, like, hey, you may have a negative viewpoint of salesmen due to maybe car shopping, but there's actually a lot of really helpful salespeople that will help you make proper decisions to buy your stuff, not just in the car world, but everywhere. So I had to learn that with age. Anyway. All right, guys. Hold on a sec. Sorry about that. All right, so what else is going on? Is everybody getting ready for FL2K and Mod Nats and the end of the year awesomeness, including the new election? I don't want to talk politics here, but we got a big one coming up. Who knows how that's going to go? The whole thing, it's like a damn movie script. Every single day, something crazy happens, and you're like, what? I can't believe that would happen. Mr. Draghi, will you install my fuel system that removes the factory fuel filter? Got a great deal on it. Nope. Swapping a 13 Boss engine into a 13 Auto GT Street car. Looking to put a 2.3 liter TVS on it, seeking 700 to 725 on 93. Do you have any preference between Roush, VMP, etc.? For that year, no, not really. I like Whipple. We do more Whipple than anything. But back in the day of the Gen 1 and Gen 2, the VMP stuff was really good. You know, VMP and Roush stuff. Obviously, the newer Roush stuff is not good. But that time frame, I guess, you know, for something like that, the VMP is probably better than the Roush, but I still always pick Whipple. I like to have scalability, and you're gonna even if you're not thinking you're wanting to go that high, which you said 700 to 725 on 93. Um, you know, you might change your mind and want to do more than that, and it just gets easier and easier once you have a Whipple over a smaller blower. Although the VMP stuff is really good. Mark says, thanks for the info. You have a good night too. Is there a way to test actual octane of fuel by hearing that maybe the fuel isn't good? What is good timing on a GT 500 2020? Timing wise, that's going to vary quite a bit on the tune up. Cam timing, air fuel ratio, all those sorts of things have a very big impact on the ignition timing that you're going to run. But as a general rule, on 93, you're going to be anywhere between like 14 degrees of timing and maybe 18 degrees of timing. And on E85, you know, a GT 500 is lower compression. And one of the things there is they have very different timing. They demand different timing for max power than, say, any other Coyote because of the lower compression, and some of it has to do maybe with the cylinder head and all that. So we run most tuners run anywhere between, you know, low to mid 20s on those, but you can really push those depending on boost level, air fuel ratio, all that sort of stuff. But on E85, you can get pretty spicy on a GT 500. Part selection. Oh, thanks for answering my question. Part selection is usually seeking what works. I have a set of heads at NPR right now getting the new high score treatment. It will be there for a tune one day. Awesome. Yeah. That's the problem though. Like, you know, where do you find out what works? Are you just taking like a general poll of what you see on the internet and like playing the law of averages, which is not really a bad way to do that. Like, okay, well, if 9 out of 10 people say to get a Whipple over a Roush, then there's a reason for that. And, you know, there's some merit to that, obviously. Not always, but the cream often does rise to the top, or at least two things will rise to the top. The best part will rise to the top, and the part that's pretty good but cheap will rise to the top. Right? Like, oh, well, that's pretty good, and I can get by and run some good ETs and not blow my car up. Good. And then there's the really well-engineered, a little bit more expensive good. I prefer number 2. I've never been a number 1 kind of guy. That's probably why it takes so long for me to build stuff, because it's expensive. I have more stories than we have time, Craig Built says. Tommy says, from October to April, Bradenton is the place to be. Yeah, speaking of Bradenton, has you guys seen the Cletus video and all the flooding they had over there? That was crazy. They've had a really rough time over the last year or two with storms. I mean, they had to move FL2K the one year, and then now this. I haven't really kept up with it in the last day, but I sure hope they don't have any substantial damage. I would think with that much water, there's possibilities for, you know, it damaging the surface of the track. So I hope not. Speed Freak 33. Hey guys, you had my truck for a month now, and I couldn't be happier with the customer service received. Is this, does your last name start with a C? I'd be curious because I love your truck. We already started tuning on it. Actually, it's scheduled to be finished up tomorrow. It's already made some polls. I don't know if they give you power numbers. So if this is your truck, twin turbo truck, blue truck, if that's your truck, awesome truck. It looks badass. Although I sure hope you have a plan for wheels and tires, because that's not going to work. What you got? Yeah, your truck turned out awesome. Very, very cool. It's scheduled for most of the day tomorrow on the dyno to finish it up for you to get it on Friday. PNC 151, no, or I would have TTR already. Waiting to see what JPC shows before I break the piggy bank. Yeah, they are testing it. There were some issues with the test car, and everything's been worked out. And I believe it's being tested in the next week or two. So you should get some results very soon. Sasha says we need Mr. Trump. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. All right, guys. If anybody has any more questions, let's hear them. If not, I'm going to hit the road here in just a little bit. How's the weather been by you guys? It was so friggin' hot today. This has been the worst summer ever in South Florida. I'm sure I say that every year, but it seems like it's much, much worse. The feels like temperature today was 110 degrees. Absolutely awful. All right, guys. I'm going to call it a night. I'll probably be back next week. We're going to be getting the podcast going again soon. I already have an episode recorded with Paul Yaw that I have to get around to editing. It's just things have just been super crazy for me the last month or two. So I don't think that's going to change. So I just have to shoehorn some time in there to do the editing here soon. And then we've got all kinds of guests. I've talked to Doug Cook at Motion Raceworks, Evan Smith, all sorts of people that I want coming in. Tony Palo, I'd like to do with at T1. We're trying to link up with him here in the next, before the end of the year. So we got all kinds of people lined up for the podcast. If there's any guests that you guys want, or if you think you'd like to be on the podcast, shoot us an email at support@pbdyno.com. Let us know what you think. Tell us who you want to see on the show. If you want to be on the show, let us know why you should be on the show. I'm willing to talk to anybody. If you got a good story, it's got to be car related, motorsports related, of course. And then, we'll get you on here. I've got a couple more questions. How much real horsepower can a stock fuel system injectors and boost pump on an 04 Terminator? Oof, man, it's been a long time. I tune them all the time, but it's been a while since I spec'd one of those out. So you got me here with a tough question. Hold on. Oh, he retracted it. Thanks for retracting it. Oh, I can't shut it off now. There we go. Come up to Seattle, 78 and 43% humidity. You can make speed. Yeah, it's been like I got to get my weather station out. Water grains are, I would assume, are in the 140, 150 range. It's like in the dyno room, it's usually about 95 to 100 degrees at least. Well, I mean, I didn't even do much on the dyno today. It was just so hot. But you're talking like 67% humidity, which if you guys don't know how humidity works, it's relative humidity. So 67% at 96 degrees is insanely high. That's way more than, say, like 50 degrees at 67%. You got to look at the water grains for that. We'll go over a weather video here soon. So how much real horsepower can stock fuel system on an 04 Terminator handle, injectors and boosters? It's been a while since I've done a stock fuel hat, so I'm not going to answer that one. I was hoping that you didn't want to know after you retracted it the first time. Yeah, honestly, I don't know. Every single one I've touched in the last couple of years, at least, have all had aftermarket fuel systems. I was 2-8 for the 08 market crash. Could automotive performance shop survive if we see another market crash? No. If we see a market crash, I mean, some will, of course, we might not survive something like that, because the problem with us in a situation like that is, a real small, lean type shop that maybe they own the building and it's paid off or nearly paid off, and they don't have a ton of overhead or operating costs, and they may have a really badass shop, but it's on their property at their house, or they own it, like I said. Those people can weather storms much more than somebody like us who's operating in one of the most expensive counties in the country, our rent here is through the roof, which means, everything's through the roof. Our insurance is through the roof. We've got 10 employees. We're a fairly large operation. So, you would probably see more of the middle guys struggle more than anything. The smaller guys that are lean would probably be okay. The really, really, really big guys would probably be okay. The middle guys are the ones that are going to hurt the most. So, all right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up. Hope you guys enjoyed the podcast, and hope you guys make it next week. I got to think about some more topics, and also, the format that we're going to use here long term. I like to try and come up with topics every week, and I think it's important, but I also want to take a lot of questions from you guys and encourage questions. So maybe we'll come up with some contests we do during the deal to make it fun for everybody. I don't know. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed it. Like the video, share it with your friends, and we'll see you on the next one.